The winter is over, it's March 5, it's time to inspect the hives and maybe put on some new honey supers if the bees are starting to run out of space in the boxes underneath. Hive number 1 has got a lot of activity. We see bees flying in and out in large numbers, bringing pollen and nectar back into the hive. Hive number 2 has got an interesting thing. They've created their own entrance reducer with propolis, so we're going to take a look at that too. We'll start out by adding a little bit of smoke to the hive at the back side and a little bit underneath the cover, and that will calm the bees down and they won't be as aggressive as they normally would. Then we have to pry loose the top, which the bees have glued on with propolis. They do that to prevent bugs from being able to get inside. And then they've put wax between the tops of the frames and the screen, so we have to pry that loose too. You can see a couple of the frames are almost completely empty on the outer edges, and the inside frames are pretty busy. So we'll scrape off some of this wax off the tops of the frames, clean it up a little bit. Always hate to do that, but it's necessary. Then we'll pull out the unused frames that haven't been drawn out with comb yet. Get those out of the way so we can take a look at the frames that do have activity. Here, the first one I'm going to pull out, frame number 3, has got quite a bit of honey up along the top. That's left over from the winter. That's what they've been eating all winter. Down below that we see some nectar and pollen left over. On the back side, the bees are quite busy. The structure of all of the frames is that there will be honey around the corners and edges and out toward the outer frames of the hive, and then coming inward from that you'll find nectar and pollen, and then in the very center of the hive is where the brood is raised. That's where the queen will be laying eggs and the larvae will be growing, and then they'll cap that off. And they leave the nectar and pollen close by and then put the honey on the very outer edges as the nectar cures and loses its moisture content. So as we work our way toward the inside of the hive, you'll find the brood that's being raised, and it's capped off with wax so that the larvae can grow inside. And then around the outer edges there may be nectar or pollen in the corners of these inner frames. They've managed to put a lot of comb between the bottoms of the frames and the screened bottom board, and so I removed some of that. It allows them a little bit better ventilation in the hive and allows them to get in and out a little bit easier. I don't want to disturb these frames too much because the queen is going to be on one of these frames here where they're raising brood, and so I don't want to run the risk of knocking her loose and having her fall off. So I'm just going to make a quick inspection of what's going on here and make sure that there's lots of capped brood, which indicates that the queen is laying eggs and everything is healthy.
This is something I've never seen.
It's hard to tell if I'm able to get this on camera, but you can see here they've built themselves a wall at the entrance, and they've only got about 5 or 6 little openings there, so they've got limited entry.
It's like they've made their own entrance reducer that normally we put on in the winter to prevent mice from getting in. They made their own, which is just really cool.
Hive number 2 was always a smaller hive, a little bit weaker hive with not quite as many bees. I don't know why, but they haven't even finished putting comb in the outer 3 frames here. With a lot fewer bees, I'm interested in what they're doing here. And they've stuck these frames onto the hive body with propolis. Again, this is their own glue, and it's a very antibacterial glue. They use it for all kinds of different things. They've apparently built honeycomb between the frames, which you're not really supposed to do, but they're insects and you can't control them. So, unfortunately, I had to kind of rip this loose and rip up their little honey supply here. Just wanted to pull this out and show what happens. You can't control bees, and so they'll do what they want to do. And by leaving this hive alone and not messing with it too much, they have had an opportunity to build a lot of comb there. And so I'm just going to leave them be, so to speak. I do want to remove the propolis entrance reducer that they've created down below, because at this point it's warm enough, it's 75 degrees in the afternoon. I want to make sure they have ample opportunity to get in and out and to go forage. Then after that I put a second box on top of each one with empty frames that they can use for honey storage.
You weren't afraid?
No, I'm not afraid. I love the bees. They're really cute, actually.